Hello, Play the Game, this is Rowan with another top 5 Borderlands what the fuck moments. In episode 8, we're going to be looking at locations. And honestly, this was another hard episode. Most locations in Borderlands are really well done, with pretty much all of them having some likeable aspects, purposes for existing, and overall nice places to be in. But because there are so many of them, there is always going to be a couple that I could nitpick out into a top 5. So here's the list. Number 5. Evenflow. Evenflow is probably the least known location of Borderlands. It's a small peninsula located in southern Shelf Bay, already not exactly a popular destination. You go there to kill Midge-Mon, and that's pretty much it. Evenflow has next to no practical reason for its existence, but it's obvious that quite a bit of work has been put into it. After the first few Bully-Mon dens, there's a wide open area where the game spawns in a swarm of Rack, which often turns into quite a fierce fight if you're not suitably prepared with powerful shields and good weapons. After that you fight through some more dens and you encounter dual badass Bully-Mons, probably the first time you'll see badass Bully-Mons in normal mode. And because of all this, Evenflow is a really well designed, nice area to be in. But what's the point when there's no reason to go there, no point of the player travelling there? After everything you go through, you get a grey chest, so green loot tops, which might be acceptable on, say, normal mode where you're pretty much using white loot in the first few areas, so green might be welcome in a pinch, but on true Vulture mode or higher, the contents of that chests are always going to be utter garbage. It really should have been a red chest for all that you have to go through to get there. In other areas of the game, red chests are a lot more accessible than that. Hell, there's like 3 of them just to get to Flint. But for this hidden side area with all of these badasses and swarms of Rack to end in just a grey chest, that's pretty confusing. But don't get me wrong, I like that Gearbox put effort into the little things, but what's the point when there's no point to them? Which is why Evenflow goes in at the number 5 spot. It's not a bad area, but I guess wish it had a point. Number 4. Sanctuary Hole. Another example of an underutilized location. After Sanctuary takes off in Rising action, it leaves behind this location in its place, Sanctuary Hole. And this place had so much potential for missions to take place. Here are just some ideas that I came off the top of my head. Discovering the history of the Crimson Raiders and how they were established and their initial fights against Jack. Rescuing survivors who took shelter underneath and weren't in Sanctuary when it took off. A wave defense game as Varkids from the Caustic Caverns try and spread to the surface. The Bloodshots returning to Sanctuary and making it their new headquarters after the attack on their dam. There are just 4 ideas that you could have put into Sanctuary Hole very easily, and it would have been awesome. It would have really flushed it out as a location because there's a lot of emotion and excitement, and all of those ideas would have fitted into Sanctuary Hole very well. But instead you quickly run through it to first reach the Caustic Caverns. The only thing in here is bandits dropping markers as safe. That's 2 lines of dialogue. The hole also shows the reason why in every level you start off at the lowest point and then work your way up, because when it's the other way around you can just jump off and bypass the entire map. Not that there's anything you're missing out on. And that is why Sanctuary Hole makes it to the number 4 spot, because content wise that's probably one of the most lackluster areas of the game. Number 3. Southern Raceway. This beats Sanctuary Hole on the list for one reason. The Sanctuary Hole was a small location, so it is somewhat of a reason for not having content in it. Southern Raceway is huge, and it has little to no more content to it. Oh sure, there's a couple more missions in it, but they don't add anything to the area, and furthermore this list is about locations, not missions. And as a location, Southern Raceway has nothing unique about it. The vehicle sections contain the same bike variants as the Badass Creator Badassitude. The infantry areas contain the same bandit reskins as any other spot so far in the DLC. The only unique enemies in this area or the slagged and tubby rack from the mission Gas Guzzlers. And they're not even reskins, they're just copy pasted enemies from the main game, with the loot that they should drop removed. That's pretty lazy / depressing. Motorman was the only boss, well, the only respawnable one at least, and she has no loot to her, so there's no point of fighting her except to progress through the story. Also, for a location called the Southern Raceway, you would expect there to be, you know, racing taking place in there, but the death race takes place in the crater. So because the Southern Raceway has absolutely no reason for existing, and this is a DLC which you're paying money for on top of the original game, so that's why it clocks in at the number 3 spot. Number 2. Sylias Grove. Now all of the locations in Hammerlock's DLC are fairly poor. They're too big, the colour palette is almost exclusively unpleasant, they're very rough around the edges, and no one actually wants to go there. Have you ever thought, yeah, I'll go to one of those areas in Hammerlock's DLC, I always have fun there? No one ever thinks of that, they're all really depressing. So really any of them could have made it onto the list, but in my opinion at least, Sylias Grove is particularly miserable. It's huge, but it's so foggy you can't appreciate it, unlike Hunter's Grotto. There's nothing in it, the only bosses are Rakanoth and Thermitage, but there's nothing special about them and they drop absolutely nothing, so there's no point in even bothering with them. The savages are the same as any other area in Hammerlock's DLC. Or Crumrax's now that I think about it. The only unique enemies to this area are actually just the hostile swamp boats. They only appear in Hunter's Grotto as a one-off, but honestly I don't think anyone's ever going to go there because of the swamp boats, because they're irritating as hell. Basically, it's the same as Southern Raceway, but it's worse because it looks terrible and it has Claptrap in it. Although, to its credit, the central savage bit is, in my opinion at least, a relatively nice piece of level design, but that doesn't save it from the number 2 spot. Number 1. Washburn Refinery. I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but Washburn Refinery somehow is even less original than the other locations. It completely recycles enemies from the main game. You exclusively fight loaders in this, and not even reskinned loaders like in Torg's DLC, just the exact same enemies from the standard game. And that's what everyone wants in a pirate DLC, fighting the same fucking boring loaders. The only addition to the enemy list is the R loaders, who are loaders with shields equipped. Brilliant, 10 out of 10 innovation. Also plot wise, the refinery is destructing junk loaders. Not exactly sure why or even how it's doing this, but yeah, they're intentionally making junk loaders when they could literally build anything else. Additionally, after this kill all the enemies to progress spot, you have this button that's only found on the far side that opens up a secondary door, probably so that you could skip this long and boring bit when you return later, but they didn't code it properly or at all, so the door doesn't stay open when you return, rendering it pointless and just another example of lazy level design. Regarding missions, well, excluding the mandatory go through the area bit of the primary campaign, we have I Know It When I See It, where you kill Pervy, a reskinned midget loader, and Censorbot hands out a few other missions for you in other areas. Pretty light on content if you ask me. Also we have Hurley, I've already covered him and what he is, and Hyperius. Holding my thoughts on him aside, his arena is very poor. His door is very prone to glitching, which locks players out, denying them their loot and forcing them to reset the game. Very annoying. Also, the arena is way too bright, which really hampers searching for loot, always a good idea in a loot based game. And for some reason Washburn Refinery has a unique day-night cycle where the day is about 4 times as long as it should be, so waiting for it to become darker is really annoying. Couple this with poor optimization, which means you get frame rate drops no matter what PC or console you're playing it on, and Washburn Refinery is just the worst location in Borderlands 2. Making you go, What the fuck were they thinking of when they designed it? So this has been Rowan. I hope you enjoyed this top 5 what the fuck locations in Borderlands 2, and if you have your own idea for a top 5, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, because as I said, there's a lot of locations and I can see the good sides to them, but I'm interested in seeing what other people think about them. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to PlayTheGAMEcentral for more Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel coverage. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.